afternoon, friends and colleagues, and welcome to RC Squared, Random Categories with Robert Chain. I first want to thank our listeners for the incredible support we have seen from the community on our first two episodes. RC Squared is an audience-driven podcast focused on experiential marketing and lifestyle elements. If you are interested in our content and would like to listen to our earlier podcasts, please check us out on Spotify, Apple, Google, or Anchor. This past week, I participated in the Professional Convention Management Association and E180's Virtual Brain Date Forum. As I was looking through the marketplace of ideas and topics, one theme began to stand out: the idea of monetization of digital events. With this being such a hot topic, I wanted to take some time to discuss ideas that were shared during the Brain Date, as well as research on various formats. Now, to set the tone, I first want to speak to a few frameworks to consider when looking into options of how to monetize a virtual event. First, you must consider the extent to which your event has actually been virtual in the past. Many experiential marketers are looking at what we're doing today really in a vacuum, but many have already been hosting various virtual events over the past 8 to 10 years. This has been done through the uploading of content or sessions from a live event onto the internet to view at a later date, or for those who are unable to attend in person, or by having an online directory of possibly your exhibitor base with various levels of sponsors to have different highlight levels for these individual listings. Now, if you have done any of these in the past, these are incredible starting points when considering monetization, as you will have a lot of data on the possible additional audience reach, as well as even price points that have worked in the past for your specific audience if you've used a paywall. The second consideration is to double down on the main reason to host a virtual event for your audience. It is more important than ever to really assess that differentiating factor that your group can provide its audience. This can most easily be defined as education, industry thought leadership and innovation, or the building of business relationships. An example for this framework is if your organization builds business relationships or brand recognition among an audience, you may look for a virtual event as an opportunity to really expand the reach of your event into new markets due to previous barriers of entry. With this goal of reaching as many people as possible, there is not a premium on the cost per head. To help ensure engagement for this model, you must really uncover that common challenge or burning question to really and actively define a framework for your group to meet. This intent will really go a long way to ensure valuable interactions take place in a virtual setting. Now, there are many theories on how to make virtual events feel more communal and as in-person as possible through secondary chat features like Slack channels or moderated breakout discussions. And if you're interested in any of these topics for future episodes, please let us know in the comments section below. Now, while these are frameworks you should consider, I also wanted to share some of the top formats that we are seeing today. One of the first and simplest variations being the broadcast model. And this really takes a page straight out of the book of television, where your primary goal is providing an audience content or education. You will most likely derive your revenue primarily through a few key sponsors who will carry majority of the cost for the entire event. One of the keys to being successful for this model is not only to assess the potential sponsors for this format, but also assuring that the goals of the sponsor are able to be achieved based off of the content that you are providing for this specific event. As we now rely on the content alone to carry the attention of our audience, a variation of the broadcast model we have been seeing is the pay what you can. In this format, you can still set a minimum accepted costs to get through the paywall, but really allow your audience to provide the insights of the real value that they derive. And this can provide incredible data and analytics to help you drive future events. If at all possible, be sure to try this at smaller niche group gatherings that you have to really gather as much information as you can on your audience to help drive these decisions for your larger annual events. Another model that we've been seeing a lot is the multi-tiered pricing. And the key benefit to this is creating an opportunity for upselling if one of your goals for your virtual event is to generate revenue for your organization. When strategically considering this model, you should really start by benchmarking the price against attendance in comparison to what your break-even price for hosting an event is. As events evolve into hybrid models with both in-person and virtual elements, you must be sure to constantly analyze this relationship to assure that pricing for the virtual cannot be too low to disincentivize the physical attendance, while also appropriately scaling for the access to the content and connections post-event. Finally, I want to discuss a model for organizations that built their reputation on a community of traditional buyer-seller interactions. Virtual events are undoubtedly a step above outright cancellation, as you can still have access to a much wider audience of potential buyers in this new format. For this model, you can really look at a flat rate exhibitor fee and bundled virtual trade show package. These flat rates could be derived from a more traditional advertising model, the cost of customer acquisition. Any corporation or partner who advertises through traditional mediums like television or digital most likely have metrics for their cost to acquire a new potential buyer or customer. Now, you can work with your key partners within your ecosystem to really gather the data and model out based off of the size and the audience that you will provide to them. An additional idea that relates to this model is to even have your event be invite only to assure the value of the audience that you are providing. Or you could even look to shift into a more market week format, allowing your vendors the ability to showcase their products or host meetings with audience members. One thing to note is that in a virtual setting, you will be able to track buyer engagement with precision. These new tracking metrics and the value that they derive will be crucial for your success. Now, all of these strategies can be successful if they are appropriate for your core audience and community. And if you can be sure to test and assess each model on smaller events to assure that you have the best data to make a strategic decision for larger gatherings. As always, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button below and follow us on social media at R_C_Squared for more frequent updates and to continue the conversation around our community. Do not hesitate to reach out via our social channels if you have ideas, suggestions, or would like to be featured on a future episode. Thank you for listening to RC Squared, Random Categories with Robert Chain. See you next week.